I call
Speaker.
Joan Hayes.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I rise to take a call on the Christchurch City Council Rates Validation Bill. And I must say, after listening to that kōrero from our colleague across the way over there, I agree with you. You know, the mistake that was made wasn't made by the current mayor, it wasn't made by the current CEO, it was made by all of those that went before her. And but the thing is, once you take on those positions and those posts, you do inherit, unfortunately, all the rubbish that had happened prior to you coming in there. And so I think that, you know, that's what we, when we elect our mayors and our councillors, that's some of the things that actually may come up. And I'm not a fan of retrospective and passing retrospective legislation through this House either. However, that's the position we're in with this Christchurch City Council Rates Validation Bill, and we need to keep going with it and get it through the House. I want to. I think a lot of what you've said, Mr. Mark, you hit the nail on the head when it came to past histories of that particular council and accountability of CEOs, and you know, the bigger they get. Yes, at times it looks like it's more complicated to manage and messages stop getting moved around, and you know, and I think that for Christchurch City, that's basically what happened, is that messages weren't getting to the people. Was it competency, incompetency, what was it? We won't know. All we need to know is that we're going to move this one forward. And I guess, Mr Speaker, that's why this government has been doing a lot of work around establishing prudent benchmarks that requires councils to produce 30-year plans, strategies, and that councils now have to provide information to those to their ratepayers about everything that they're doing, so the ratepayers can actually judge the council's performance. And that's really key, because I mean, I'm not a ratepayer of the Christchurch City yet. I'm a ratepayer of another small district council, and that's some of the things that I ask my councillors that represent our area is, you know, okay, so we've voted for you, so what are you doing? What type of job are you doing? What kind of job are you doing for us as ratepayers? And how are you measuring it? And there's a lot to be said around performance measures of councillors and their workers, and how the councillors get around the table to do performance management of their CEO. That type of work I have no idea about, but it's a real, it's one of those things that I came from a small NGO and we had to do that. We as Māori NGOs, we had to do that with all of our staff, and our boards had to do that with managers like myself. And I guess there's a lot of lessons to be learned from the small groups. Is that if you have good performance management systems, then maybe the big ones could actually learn from the small ones. No. But the point is, we're dealing with that legislation now for Christchurch City. Beg pardon? Oh, no. We're talking about this council, and that's where we're going to stay. So another area where we're reducing red tape for councils. That's what our role is. That's what our role is. And I can tell you right now that one of our key projects that is happening within the local government area has been our rules reduction task force. It's an amazing task force that is going around all the local government areas, seeking input from ratepayers, from people that are interested, that may not be ratepayers but are still affected by some of the things that are happening in their cities or their towns, and they start especially around the regulations and rules and laws that particular council has, and so they're asking for feedback. Recently I hosted one of those rules reduction task force meetings in the Christchurch East electorate, and it was very interesting about some of the issues, the red tape issues that some of these developers, some of the people that were redeveloping their homes were actually going through. The really minute things that led by Jackie Dean and sponsored by Paula Bennett, are looking for to actually help ratepayers. We are actually there to help ratepayers into the future, to make sure that their cities actually, or their towns, are actually working for them, and that's what it's all about. So when we start to look at the rates validation bill, we start to see, you know, what is it? What are the sections? What are the sections that require the rates to be set, the resolutions of the council? And so the resolutions must specify the financial year to which the rates apply. And these, I'm repeating these, I understand that. I understand that I am repeating these because they're really key. And I'm hoping that other councils that may or may not be perhaps heading down the same situation can actually look at some of the things that they're doing, the way they set their rates, and that they're making sure they're using this as a tick box to make sure that they don't end up in the same situation. So we're looking at the financial year to which the rates apply, the date on which the rates must be paid and or if payable by instalments, the payment dates for each instalment, the penalties to be added to the rates not paid by the due date and how these penalties are to be calculated. So some of the irregularities made by the Christchurch City Council under the Local Government Rating Act 2002 included a failure to state in the rates resolution that the rates would be payable in instalments by certain dates. So these rates resolutions, they also failed. They failed to state the penalties that would be added to the rates if they weren't paid on the due date, and the rates that were to be assessed in the previous year that remained unpaid. So the dates that the penalties were to be added to the unpaid rates and the amounts of penalties that would be added, all of these things were actually missing from within this, within the rates resolution. So in addition to the irregularities, we also had areas that included the failure, and my colleagues here have already stated it, but I'm going to state it again. It's failure to state the church-based sewer and the water loan rate system, and all of these were provided within the Christchurch City Council's funding impact statement. Everything that I talk about from here on, it includes, it's provided in the Christchurch City Council's funding impact statements. It was failure to state the Governor's Bay sewer and the Governor's Day water loan rate as set as a fixed amount, and it failed to state the liability for the restricted water target rates, which is calculated on the level of service through a restricted water supply system. It failed to state that the water minimisation rate was set as a fixed amount per rating unit as provided again. Yes, it was very serious. As I carry on, it failed to state that the water minimisation rate was calculated on the number of separately used or inhabited parts of the rating unit, and it also failed to state the water fire service connection rate. And finally, it failed to state the uniform annual general charge that was to be calculated on a number of separately used inhabited parts of the rating unit. So in order to address those, then those were procedural irregularities. Again, this bill validates the payment rates for the rates set and assessed by the Christchurch City Council between 2003 to 2013. It validates all the penalties added to any validated unpaid rates between 03 to 13, and it validates the basis on which certain specified or targeted rates were calculated for the rates and the years that were set out as I just stated. It also declares all monies by the Christchurch City Council in relation to validated rates and penalties to be lawful because they weren't prior to that. And finally, it provides that any unpaid rates or penalties in relation to any of this would be, made lawful and recovered by the Christchurch City Council. And we've all learned something tonight, haven't we? We've all learned something tonight. And I just want to take this time to take a bow, because that's what you have all heard from this side of the house.
They're just touching.
They are just touching. And we need to keep on reiterating that, because we do not want retrospective bills coming through this house again from councils, as my colleague here, Paul Foster-Bell, had outlined in his wonderful speech before. Okay, so anyway, let's carry on, because I know you're getting very engaged in what I'm saying. I can see that. When you put your hands up like that, it means you want more, and I'm going to give you more. So the Select Committee received only one written submission on this from the Christchurch City Council. And they were also...
I'm sitting here and I can't hear a word.
Do you want me to start again? From the top. And from the Christchurch City Council. Here we go. And they also made an oral submission, so it's good that they are supporting this bill, they were promoting this bill, and the grounds with which it was on. So they recognise there was a mistake. Let's not blame the current mayor. Let's say, let's get this bill through, and perhaps the Christchurch City Council can then concentrate all of their time on redevelopment of New Brighton. Kia ora.
Here, here.